Welcome back, everyone. We have reached our eighth and final virtual member education lesson. Hopefully, you have stuck with us throughout the last month and are taking this in as the eighth and final video that we have provided. Today, we're really going to try and wrap this all up. And what the focus of the video is making an impact on the world. You have a lot of knowledge, a lot of information now at your disposal, hopefully a lot of new skills that you have gained throughout this process and throughout your new member education process with your chapter. The next step is to take those skills and take those traits and put them into action to improve your community, to improve society, to improve the world around you. That is what we are charged with as members of Tau Kappa Epsilon, is making the world a better place, going out and improving the lives of others, improving the circumstances of others who may have been less fortunate than us, who didn't have the opportunity to be in this great fraternity. And so today we're going to talk a lot about that. And this at times might seem like the Alex Swinson TED Talk hour, and that's okay because there's a lot that I want to share with you just about some tips and best practices in general. But hopefully everything that we talk about today is extremely practical. And I really want to emphasize not just some pie in the sky, leadership language, but really some lessons that you can take away and hopefully implement in your lives that are going to help you be a better leader and impact your success. So you can see our list there. We're going to talk about personal worth and character. That's something that is discussed in this last chapter of the TEAT guide as well. We're going to talk about leadership. Same thing. There's a lot in the TEAT guide about leadership, but we're going to use this opportunity to open up some of that and talk more about it in a real world sense rather than just confining it to the fraternity. We're also going to talk to our Grand Grammateus, Ryan Vescio, someone who has a lot of experience leading in various capacities. And I think the message that he shares is very, very relevant to everything that we're talking about. So, we'll start really with your impact on the world. How are you going to make the world a better place? It seems very cliche, I know, and I'm going to hit a few cliches throughout this next half hour or so, but it is a very fulfilling thing to be able to help others. And we start with service and philanthropy, two things that are crucial to our fraternity, two things that are asked of every single member. And that philanthropic mindset is so important to develop as soon as you can. It doesn't mean you're donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to a worthy cause. It doesn't mean that you're signing a $10,000 check tomorrow to give to our foundation or give to St. Jude or give to another organization. But the mindset is what is most important. How can I give back? How can I give $2 here, $5 here, $20 one time a year? Doing what you can is the first step in developing that philanthropic mindset and developing that community service oriented attitude. And so you might not have thousands of dollars to give right now. I know I don't. And if you're a college student, I'm assuming that you're probably struggling or looking at 100 other things to spend money on. But the sooner that you can get started in the habit of giving back, in the habit of providing, whether that's your time, whether that is your dollars, I think the better you're going to feel about yourself. And that's why, we talk about that two-way street. There's a human need, a human desire to give back to others, to help other people. And yes, we all like getting presents. We all like receiving good news. But I think it's equally as fulfilling a lot of times to be the one that's providing. And so it not only is going to improve your circumstances to be philanthropic and to do community service and to volunteer for organizations and give your time selflessly, but it's going to help you as well. So think about that as you consider, what changes you could make to your day-to-day activities that are going to allow you to provide that to others. And it's going to improve your attitude. It's going to lift you up. It's going to help you be an even better version of yourself. The next thing I want to touch on when it talks about making a positive impact, politics is a scary word. And a lot of us steer clear of that. And I'm not here to tell you who to vote for or how to think or how to react. But I do think that it's an important part of our obligation as citizens of the United States or of Canada. Vote in your elections. Make sure that your voice is being heard. Make sure that you're standing up for those principles that are important to you. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you stand on, but part of making the world a better place is ensuring that what you value you're standing up for, and you're not letting others steamroll over you, and you're not letting somebody else have a bigger voice just because maybe they're louder, or maybe they have a larger platform. The flip side of that, though, is don't be a jerk about it. We have reached a point, unfortunately, in our day-to-day lives where respectful disagreements are uncommon, where it is difficult to go on social media and see two people having a civil conversation about a political party or about a certain political stance. We need to lead the charge on that. And even if others don't follow, even if you have friends from high school who are in one camp and are loud about it and refuse to be swayed off of that, that doesn't mean that we have to stoop down to that level when these discussions are taking place. Part of what makes our country so great, and I mean the US and Canada, no matter where you're watching this in, is that ability to disagree with authority, that ability to have other political views than those of the party that is in charge. But also, we need to be respectful about it. We need to make sure that we're respecting all people who of all different beliefs. And so once again, there as Teeks, I think that we need to be the ones leading that charge. And if this is something you struggle with, it's something you can get better at. It's something that you can improve little by little, where you're empathetic, which we're going to talk about later, where you see things a different way. You can view something through the lens of someone else without agreeing with them. And ultimately, that's what I think makes a really successful leader. That's what makes a really intelligent individual. And that is unfortunately very uncommon. So I wanted to make sure I touched on that because the piece about having civil discussion has really gone out the window. And I think it's something that us and in our generation, we can bring back, but it's going to need to happen slowly, and it's going to need to happen piece by piece. Next thing is cultural awareness. So this is touched on in the first video this week, 4.1. One of the most fantastic things about being in this fraternity is the ability to share a brotherhood with people from all different backgrounds, religions, races, sexual orientation, upbringing, class, if you want to look at it that way. We have Teeks who come from very, very wealthy families and Teeks who come from not so wealthy families. But at the end of the day, we all have the ability to interact with each other and share a commonality. That is Tau Kappa Epsilon. And having that ability, once again, has been overlooked a lot lately. Everyone deserves our respect as human beings. Someone might do something or say something or treat someone a certain way that diminishes that level of respect you have for them. But at a base level, as human beings, we all deserve respect. And I think about it the same way I think about recruitment. If you watched our recruitment video, we talk about the idea of not letting someone in to Tau Kappa Epsilon because you've already reached a limit or a threshold, and how ridiculous it is that you might deny someone the ability to join the fraternity just because you already recruited 20 guys this year and they're the 21st guy. In much the same way, why should a certain individual command less respect from you just because of the situation they happen to be born into or the color of their skin? Obviously, they should not. And we, again, as a fraternity, have never had that exclusionary clause. We've never had anything that would prevent you from joining on the basis of religion or race or gender, or sorry, gender is a bad example. I got carried away. Sexual orientation, anything like that. And so to carry that on and to continue that principle, we need to be respectful of all others and of all individuals, whether they're members of the fraternity or not. Next area that I think people struggle with at times is the victim mentality. It is the mentality that the world is out to get you, that everything's stacked up against you. You can't catch a break. When something goes wrong, it's because, all these external forces have conspired to push you down and to keep you from being successful. It's all about adversity. and how you respond to adversity is what is going to chart your path forward. You can either make excuses and share why, again, everything was stacked against you and it would have worked out if not for these 40 different outside factors, or you can take responsibility and you can step up and thrive in the face of that adversity. But what I would really encourage you not to do is play that victim card, is buy into the idea that for some reason you have not been successful because everyone is working against you, fighting against you. Even if you believe that to be the case, and heck, even if it is the case, thinking that way is only going to knock you down. It's only going to push you backwards. By being strong mentally and taking responsibility for any failures or for any missteps, you're going to propel yourself forward and you're going to bounce back even better than you would have if you'd have just, sit back and been passive and let things happen to you. The world is no more out to get you than it is out to get anyone else. I can almost guarantee that. And that might be true on an individual level. That might be true for your chapter or for your pledge class or for your colony. But the whole idea that a certain campus administrator doesn't like you and so they're going to promote your failure, or that the university in general is anti-Greek life, or that all of the leaders of the chapter have conspired to drag you down to their level, again, while you may feel that it's accurate, you're not going to make yourself any better by buying into it. So avoid that victim mentality, push hard to work through the adversity and taking responsibility and finding ways to get better. That's only going to make you a better leader and a stronger person. It's only going to help you, again, improve the world around you. And then the last big thing I think about making that positive impact on the world is what I call 1% better. And again, that's another cliche. I told you there'd be several of them. You can see that chart there, and that is a visual way to consider it. By waking up every morning and trying to do one thing 1% better each day, you are going to improve exponentially versus remaining flat or taking a step back. That might be getting up 5 minutes earlier so you can get an extra 10 reps in at your workout. That might be spending an extra 15 minutes studying. That might be an extra 15 minutes spending time with friends and giving advice and just hanging out and enhancing your social health or your emotional health. But by choosing something to do a little better each day, it's going to make large goals seem much more realistic. It's going to make big products seem much more accomplishable. It's going to make your pipe dreams seem tangible because you're taking small steps to get there. So any big problem you have, any issue you have, I would encourage you to think of it in small steps. 1% each day. Get a little better, do a little more. We think about it, service or philanthropy. Dedicate one more hour to a philanthropic cause. Donate $1 more to St. Jude or to the Teak Foundation or to the cause of your choosing. Little by little, that's going to build up. And before you know it, you're going to find that you're a much better person that you are now than you were when you started, because you had that mindset of getting a little better each day. I want to talk now about the personal worth and character side, who you are as an individual and what the world thinks of you and how that reflects back on the fraternity. One of the big areas with this is etiquette. And that a lot of times I think is thought of as my table manners, what fork is which. And there's a model of that right below me there that you can look at and take in if you're curious on that. And that is part of it, understanding meal etiquette and dinner etiquette and table manners and how to conduct yourself in a way that reflects strongly back on you as an individual. That is important. And that is a huge part of etiquette. But also etiquette includes how you treat other people, how you respect other individuals. You are always wearing your letters, and you've probably heard that 3 or 4 times throughout this process. You'll probably continue to hear it throughout your time as a Teak, but it is extremely true. And every decision you make about how you're going to treat someone else reflects back on you and reflects back on the Teak brand. That might be just holding the door open for 2 extra seconds. That might be helping someone pick up their books or their papers that they drop on campus. But by you being polite and by you taking those steps to exhibit that you are a man of high personal worth and character, you're going to prove to others that Teak is different. Teak is something more than just the normal fraternity experience. And all of the individuals that make up the fraternity have that power, have the power to make that change. A few other pieces. Understand how to be a great host, how to host a dinner, how to host a party, how to host a fun summer pool party cookout. All of those things, once again, they can seem small and they can seem trivial, and they should be fun, but they also reflect on you as an individual. And that can be the difference a lot of times in building your network and in making a positive impression is how you do host a meal. Even if it's just a lunch among 4 or 5 business associates, serving as the guy who sets it all up and puts it together, and serves as that servant leader, has that servant mindset of, I'm going to make sure everyone else is taken care of, and everyone else is having a good time. That's going to make you feel better about yourself, and it's going to make others feel better about you as well. And then the last thing there is etiquette when it comes to communications. How do you speak? How do you write emails? How do you send text messages? And how does that reflect back on you as a person? How does that reflect back on your chapter colony? How does that reflect back on TKE as a whole? When I think about communication etiquette, I think about swear words a lot of times, and I drop some choice language at times. Most of the time when I'm watching sports, I certainly have said my fair share of F-bombs, but guess what? I'm not doing it on this video, right? Because this is a professional atmosphere. This is a situation that doesn't call for that. And so understanding your different circumstances and situations, and where it's appropriate to talk one way versus another way, that too feeds into that ability to be a leader, to influence others, and to make a positive impact. Other pieces there on the personal worth and character, your relationships in life. These are everything, with yourself, with your friends, with your family, with women. It doesn't matter whether you're married or single or engaged or gay or straight. How you treat women says a lot about you as a man, says a lot about you as a TKE. How you respect women, how you address them, how you care for the women in your life, whether that is a spouse or a mother or a sister or just a best friend. So make improvements there if you need to. If you take stock and decide that you're not treating the women in your life very well, make those changes and take that time to be a better steward of your personal brand and of TKE's brand. Knowing yourself, again, is so important. We're going to talk about that with leadership. Your relationships with your family are going to be key in developing who you are, developing your path forward. They might be really strong and positive. They might be really poor, but at the end of the day, being able to manage those relationships and harness that energy is really key. And then the last thing that I would really encourage you to do, and it, again, this is something that doesn't seem real until you get in the situation, but learn to be a great family man. Learn to be a great partner, a great husband, a great dad, a great brother, a great son. Those are all things that can be worked on. And in any partnership, specifically when it comes to marriage, and I'll just give you some personal advice here from my experience, any marriage, any union should be a 50-50 proposition. Really, any relationship that you're in should be a 50-50 proposition. But it only works if both sides are trying to give 100. It doesn't work if you're trying to give 50 and expecting the other person to give 50. The strongest relationships you can have are both sides trying to go 100% of the way, and then you meet in the middle. So, that's my own personal piece just with marriage and being a father and being someone with a lot of family relationships. You have to be the one who's giving. You have to be the one who's going out of your way to provide. And you have to trust that the other people in your life are going to do the same. That's what a strong relationship is built on. And then lastly, staying humble. This is, I think, a fatal flaw of many, many people: arrogance, cockiness, a heightened ego. That can really take a lot of people out of the running for jobs and in their relationships. No matter how rich you are, no matter how successful you become, no matter how intelligent you are, there's always going to be someone richer. There's always going to be someone more successful. There's always going to be someone smarter. I promise you that. And I think when you think about staying humble, the way I like to put it into words is go into every interaction looking to learn something. looking to take something away from the person you're interacting with. That could be with your 3-year-old daughter. That could be with the Grand Preakness. That could be with the CEO of Amazon. Maybe you have a shot with Jeff Bezos, right? If you go into that interaction thinking you're smarter, thinking you're better than Jeff, that interaction is probably not going to go well. If you go into it with the servant mindset, I'm going to take some really good advice away from this, you're going to improve yourself and you're going to come across very humble and very eager to get better. If you are great, if you are successful, there will be no shortage of people in life telling you how great and successful you are, telling you how much money you have. Because guess what? They're going to want in on it. And they're going to want to be in the same position you were a while ago where they're trying to climb the ladder. So there will always be people around you telling you how great you are. If you're doing a great job, you don't need to feed into it by telling yourself that. Stay humble and stay hungry and go into every interaction you have with somebody looking to learn and looking to get better. And I think you'll find that humility is a lot easier to grasp. Getting now into leadership. And this is the last aspect of what I want to discuss before we get to Fratto Vescio. I don't buy into the concept of born leaders. I don't buy into the idea that some people are just destined to be great leaders. Some people are destined to be followers. I think it's a skill that you acquire throughout time, that you use your experience, and that you practice. And the first step in that, as I already talked about, is knowing thyself, knowing who you are as a leader, as a follower, as a man. Constantly taking stock of where you are. And that's going to help in a number of ways. It's going to help you to stay humble. It's going to help you to strive to be better. But that know thyself aspect is key in our development for Leadership Academy for those who have been there. And the reason for that is it's key in the development of leaders in general. In order to become a leader, you must first be a great follower. I heard Major General Charles Whittington share that at an RLC once, someone who is one of the greatest leaders that I know. You must learn to follow first. Do the grunt work, be the punching bag, go run errands, take orders. If you do that, and if you build your skill set up by being a follower and by taking orders and by learning what it's like to follow others, that more than anything is going to influence and impact who you are as a leader. Those experiences are going to shape who you want to be as you gain power, as you gain wealth, as you achieve success. Those lessons you learn as a follower are more important than anything else when it comes to who you are as a leader and how you're perceived and how people want to follow you, for lack of a better term. It's a cyclical thing. You're a follower and then you become a leader at some point, and then at some point you're probably going to have to learn to follow again. You're probably going to have to report to a CEO or a board or shareholders. But again, learn to follow first, become a great follower, become an excellent student of the game, and then you can work toward becoming a great leader. Being empathetic, I think, is really an area where a lot of leaders struggle, frankly. Remembering where you came from, remembering what it was like to be the lowest guy on the totem pole, to be the newest hire who's taken all the crap, who's taken the brunt of all the punishment. And then you become a leader, you work your way up the ladder and you forget all about that. You don't even remember what it was like. And so you just treat the next person that exact same way. Walking a mile in someone's shoes is probably the sixth cliche that I've shared so far today. But the reason that cliches are used and popular is because most of them are accurate. Be able to put yourself in the position of others. Be able to see an issue through the eyes of another person. As you go throughout life, you're going to encounter, once again, people of all different backgrounds, experience levels, and your ability to empathize with them, to understand where they're coming from, to understand how they view the world, that is vitally important in how you're going to be able to lead them and how you're going to be able to influence change within them. So practice empathy. Again, all of these skills are learned. They are skills that you can drill, that you can practice. Empathy is a huge one of those. I put that cutthroat mentality piece at the end there. You know, there's a lot of really successful and rich people who treat their underlings like trash, and hopefully you're not one of those, and hopefully you've not experienced that. But I think we've all, experienced the boss at some point who just didn't care about the people under him, who didn't care about the foot soldiers doing the work day in and day out. And that person probably stepped on a lot of people to get where they are. And that can help you achieve a certain level of success. That can help you achieve a certain measure of wealth. But at the end of the day, it's not a very fulfilling way to be successful, to piss off everyone that you ever interact with. And it's not going to help you leave a positive mark on the world. So, I know there's all different levels of who you gotta stab to get ahead in life, and who you gotta step on. And every company is a little different. And there are some organizations where, unfortunately, it's a necessity. But consider, as those things happen, what your involvement is in them and how those around you are going to perceive it and want to be associated with you when they do happen. That would be my best advice when it comes to staying empathetic. A few other traits when we think about really successful leaders: the ability to listen to what others are saying. It's a lot of the same thing as empathy. Don't just listen to a point with the intention of responding as soon as a person's done talking. Whether you're in an argument, a civil discussion, a friendly back and forth, be a good listener. Be an active listener. Hear the words that are coming out of someone's mouth and understand what they're saying and why they're saying it. Controlling your emotions is a huge part of being a leader. I think, again, we all probably know very emotional and erratic leaders, people who are set off at the drop of a hat or the push of a single button. And I think we all know how being around those individuals has impacted us in life. You can be emotional and you can be very successful, but you're also not going to create a culture where people feel comfortable sharing thoughts, sharing feedback, sharing wisdom. It's not a sustainable culture that people are going to want to be a part of if you can't control your emotions. And it all starts with knowing thyself. Once again, it starts with knowing what sets you off, knowing what angers you, knowing what frustrates you, and knowing how you're going to respond to those situations before they even happen. Taking personal stock in who you are as a person and what your hot button issues are, and knowing that if they come up, you're going to have to take a break. You're going to have to step outside to collect your thoughts. But not responding emotionally to those situations is key when it comes to earning respect and getting people on your side. And then lastly, failure. We are all going to fail multiple times. Fratto Vescio is going to talk to us about that here in just a second. But again, it goes back to that victim mentality. Are you going to stay down? Are you going to blame the world for your failures? Are you going to bounce right back? And are you going to push through? And are you going to use that failure to learn and get better? One of the things that we talked about at the regional leadership conferences this year, Greg Roskopf shared, E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And I know Greg didn't come up with that, and he doesn't take credit for coming up with it, but that's the first place I heard it. And that stuck with me. Event plus response equals outcome. And to me, that means that the event is not the outcome. It's not E equals O. Event, whatever happens, good, bad, happy, sad, successful, failure, that event does not dictate the outcome. The event plus your response is what dictates the outcome. It's what writes the final chapter. How you deal with failure is going to create who you are as a person and who you are as a leader. I can promise you that. Your response to adversity is going to either make you or break you in life. So start now, little by little. Get better at dealing with failure, get better at responding to adversity, because again, that more than anything is going to determine what your path is professionally, personally, mentally, emotionally. And that's what's going to either put people in a position where they want to be around you, where they want to follow you, where they want to be led by you, or where they simply cast you aside and say, you're not worth the time, you're not worth the energy, you're not worth the effort. So I really hope you consider, as a final point for me to make today, how you deal with failure and how you respond to adversity and how you can improve in that area. We'll shift now to Fratto Vescio. Again, our Grand Grammateus, he's an attorney down in Orlando. He's a defense attorney currently, served for multiple years as a prosecutor, which he'll tell us a little more about. But I'm excited to have Fratto Vescio in because he had a very unique undergraduate experience and he's had a very unique alumni experience, a very unique professional experience. And I think what he's going to share with us is really going to help to put a bow on what we've talked about here today. And we welcome in now from sunny Orlando, Florida, our Grand Grammateus, Fratto Ryan Vescio. Ryan, How is life?
Everything's going well. We're working here in the house and surviving and trying to do as much as we can day by day. But I think there's a lot of good things that have come out of this, and I look forward, once all this is over, to utilizing some of the things that we've learned during the last couple of months to make life even better in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to hear you and the family are doing well. We'll get right into it. And I want to just open it up first and allow you to share a little bit about, your journey, your TKE experience, your professional experience. How did you go from a college freshman who's trying to figure out which fraternity to join to where you are today?
Well, I started college at the University of South Carolina in 1998. I was really the first person in my family ever to go to college. I stepped on USC's campus not knowing anyone, and I went through Rush not knowing anything about fraternities, having no exposure or experience to them. I just heard about the free parties and the free food. So we went through a formal Rush system, and when I went to the Teak House there on campus, it was very different. USC is a very old school Southern college with a lot of history and tradition, and a lot of chapters there of other organizations had a lot of history. But our chapter at Rho Omega was only about 10 years old at the time, and we were different and innovative, and I joined. Went through my pledge process, which was not what we teach now, and I hope that not what chapters are doing now, sitting on the Grand Council, and initiated. For family reasons, I had to immediately transfer back to Central Florida, where I was born and raised. And here I am, I'm super excited. I've just been initiated. It's a big school, big chapter. And I walked around UCF's campus for 2 or 3 days trying to find TKEs. And when I would ask people, they sort of would laugh and say, well, I think we used to have those guys here. So I did what I had done the previous semester, and I went out to Rush and figuring, well, if there's a chapter, I got to find them there, and found about 6 guys in a tent at the end of Greek Park. And from there, I loved the fraternity. I loved what it stood for. I loved that it pushed us to be better people. So I stuck with the chapter, and pretty much immediately became a sophomore preakness of a 7-man chapter. And we went through a lot of growth that a lot of our chapters are doing now, where we doubled in size and doubled in size and doubled in size, dealt with the good and dealt with the bad. And by the time I left UCF in 2002, we were about a 75, 80-man chapter. I had the fortune of getting involved in the Collegiate Advisory Committee when it was first formulated, and served as CAC chair as a senior, which was an awesome experience to be able to see TKE on a bigger scope, and attend Grand Council meetings and learn from them and the professional staff. So I graduated undergrad and with my degree, and knew that I always wanted to go to law school. So I had grew up in high school as a newspaper reporter, and thought that I wanted to do journalism, and decided that I wanted to go into law instead. So I went to South Florida and went to law school. And when I graduated in 2005, I knew that I wanted to work in the legal field in the public sector as a prosecutor. I came back to Orlando, and from 2005 to September of last year, so it's about 14 years, I worked as a prosecuting attorney. I started out small, like everybody else does, and with a lot of hard work, the last 10 years of my career, I handled homicide and other high-profile prosecutions, some cases in the news, lots with horribly tragic stories, but it was really it was a really great work. Now I work as a civil attorney, working to help people that are going through difficult times, and working and representing businesses that also are facing troubles now more than ever. And one of the things that was always consistent was my desire to want to be involved in the fraternity. what Teak gave me in my undergrad days was really a family and a sense of home. Guys that I had, something in common with. We always looked out for each other through good stuff and oftentimes not. But it was really a defining experience for me going through college. It was transformative. It was enlightening. I got to do things that I would otherwise never been able to do. And what's interesting about the fraternity to me is I've been involved as a volunteer since I graduated, and that'll be going on 18 years now. And the reason why is I want men like myself, when they step on a campus and have nowhere to go and no home and no connection, to have that, because I think it defines our college experience.
That's great. And that is, I know your Teak story is pretty unique from start to finish. And I think being able to offer that perspective just, helps people understand that everyone's Teak story is a little different, and everyone has a different background and a different way that they got to the fraternity. But at the end of the day, we're all Teaks, and it's what brings us all together. I want to dive in a little more. Really, the topic of our video today is making an impact on society, on your community, on the world around you, and how we as Teaks can best do that. Your time as an attorney, as a prosecutor, I know you have seen a lot of the really bad in the world and in people. And your goal, I know, was always to hold those people accountable. And even now, your goal is to ensure that if something is going wrong or if something's unfair or unjust, that those responsible for it are held accountable for that. And, I want to just ask you, where did you gain that sense of wanting to make the world a better place, I guess, that led you to your career?
So it started for me when I was in high school, because I worked really, really hard. I had a father who was very ill, a mom who worked as just cutting hair, and everything that I got in the early aspect of my life, on everything even now, was because of hard work. I had to make it myself. So I did very well in school. My parents barely graduated with high school diplomas. They didn't really care about what my grades were. I worked full time in high school, played 3 varsity sports because I needed to help support the family. So I had to work really, really hard and go through a lot. And what always would get me in class would be the people that would cheat on the paper next to me, and that just wanted to mail it in, thought that they were entitled to things. And it really fortified in me the principle that you got to work hard for what you get. And I do think in the end, people truly earn what they've put in. And, people that are handed things up front, but it's never good enough. They always want more, or they are indifferent about the sacrifices that other people do to lift them up. I think it all comes around. So for me, that's what drove me to law. And, whether or not it was a homicide scene that I would go to, or it was a politician that was stealing money from donors, or even now if it's a family member that's trying to steal from their parents who are incapacitated and don't have control of their affairs, we have to have rules, and we have to follow rules. I think it brings a new angle these days, talking about everything even going on with COVID, in that I've been working from my home since about the first week in March. And I would love nothing more than to go to Disney this weekend, or go do the things that, my family loves to do. But we all have to sacrifice right now for the greater good. And when people don't do that, it just ruins things for everyone else.
Yeah, and that's great perspective, I think. And again, it just speaks to your upbringing, your background, and how that's really shaped who you are today. I know that you have served. You talked a little bit about your time as Preakness and about trying to dig your chapter out of a hole and turn it from 7 men to 80 men. You've served as a leader in a lot of capacities throughout your life, personally, professionally, through the fraternity. How have you changed as a leader from the time you stepped on the South Carolina campus as an 18-year-old to where you are now, and what have you learned about, how to lead others and how to get others bought into the same things that you want to teach them?
So I do think I've come some way. I don't have it perfectly right yet. And, I think it's a couple things. I think the first is learning that you're gonna fail, and you're gonna fail all the time. I mean, some people, have the adage that, if you play baseball and hit the ball 3 out of every 10 times, you're going to the Hall of Fame. And that means that 70% of the time you're going to swing and miss. And I think it's being comfortable enough to accept the fact that sometimes you're going to get it wrong. And when you get it wrong, sometimes it's because of bad decisions you made, or sometimes it was things out of your control. And sometimes things just aren't lined up to be, to win that battle or win that issue. And it's just being able to get over it and move back. I think that another big thing that I've learned over time, and I try to do, is to listen and understand. Somebody that's coming to you in an issue that has a difference of opinion, most times are doing so because they have a genuine conviction in their position or their thought or what they're saying, and really trying to listen more to what they're saying than to formulate in your head what your response is going to be. And sometimes we're successful in doing that, and sometimes we're not. I think the last thing is, for me, is using experiences like building blocks. Whether or not it's an issue with one of my kids. We have 6 kids in our house, and one's getting ready to graduate high school, and there's some in elementary school, and it's as a parent, having gone through things with one and then using that as an experience towards the other, I think is really, really smart. You can't forget the things that happen in your life, and you can't just throw them away, even if they've been negative experiences. Find the positive and then use it to reinforce the next time you're in that position, I think is very important.
That's perfect. And that echoes directly some of what we've already talked about, and again, puts it into real life examples. I wanted to dig in a little more. You talked about failure, and another big piece of what we talk about in this video is your mentality, your mindset, and how some people fail, they take missteps, and they play the victim card. They make excuses, they say the world's out to get them. How have you worked through that and been able to control your response to adversity to where it is a positive and learning experience to make you better moving forward?
So one instance of that was back in 2011. I was working as a homicide prosecutor and working my cases, and I saw a lot of things that I didn't like. Managerial decisions, philosophies of what prosecutors should do versus what they did at the time. Saw the need that we needed to kind of reform how we thought about crime, and the people who commit the crime, and victims of crime. So I was 33 years old and decided I'm going to run for elected state attorney. It was a large campaign. The geographical area here in Central Florida where I ran, I mean, we had 1 million citizens in 3 congressional districts, and it was 80 miles worth of landscape to run in. And so, like everything else, I decided if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it really hard. Nobody had challenged the elected state attorney in like 28 years. I ran in the political party that was not the majority party in the district. I mean, it was like every single thing that today I would look at this and say, what are you doing? There's no way in hell you're going to win this thing. My 33-year-old self said, nope, we're going to do it. And I drove 60,000 miles in 13 months of a campaign and went to every single one of the 480 precincts. And I was working 80, 90 hours a week, really wanting to win and change my community. So I remember it's election night. It's November, so it's dark. The polls close at 7 o'clock. And here it is at 6:58 p.m. I'm in front of my local polling station at the local library. and I'm standing by myself in the dark, trying to convince one last person who may try to come in at 7 o'clock to hopefully vote for me, because that's going to be the one vote that puts me over. And the thing about it is it was over a year of work, and we raised over $100,000 from people. And the thing about election night is you learn in about 15 minutes most times whether you're going to win, you're going to lose, or it's going to be a long night. And in about 20 minutes or so, we realized that we were not going to win. And I made up 22 points worth of ground, but when you were down by 28, that doesn't matter. It's like hitting a triple and losing the game. So it was really tough for me. And I think it fundamentally changed my outlook on politics. It changed my outlook on what we as individuals know in our community and focus on in our community. And it taught me a lot about friends and family, I think both good and bad. I went through that type of endeavor, and everybody supports you until you ask them to write you a check, or everybody supports you until you ask them to introduce you to friends. And I had family and friends that both were really, really great. And I had family and friends that really weren't that supportive. And it was a lot to come back from. And the thing is I, for the last 6 months of the campaign, I took a full leave of absence. And it was a humbling experience that Friday after the election, going right back to my old office, blowing the dust off my statute book and getting back to life. So I think people go through those sorts of things. And it'll always be a great memory of mine, and something that I often draw upon when making decisions or how I conduct myself now.
And it's interesting that you bring up the political side of things. That's, without digging into it in terms of policies and ideologies, that's another piece of what we talk about, which is that, we live in a world right now where it's very uncommon for people to have civil conversations about topics they disagree. We're seeing it right now with what's going on with coronavirus, and you either stand on one side or the other, and the other side's completely wrong and you're completely right, is unfortunately the mindset of a lot of individuals. And I know through my experiences with you, obviously you have your beliefs and what you stand on, but that's never stopped you from being able to be respectful to others and have positive and productive conversations with others. How do you maintain that sense of respect? How do you put yourself in position to work with people from all backgrounds and beliefs and cultures? And why do you think that's so important, especially for someone in college right now who's still trying to figure out their way in life?
Well, I think the first thing is it's a recognition that everybody comes from a different background. I mean, take you and me, for instance. We've talked about stuff, and sometimes we've agreed on some stuff and sometimes we've not agreed on stuff. But, I recognize that Alex Swenson had a completely different upbringing, a completely different part of the country. What you're exposed to every day locally is very, very different. You have the perspective of being a new father and newer. And going through that, it changes your perspective. I think sometimes it's recognizing that on certain topics we've been almost overexposed to them. I'll give you a perfect example. Oftentimes on the Grand Council, we talk a lot about responsibility, and we talk about rules and policies and why it's so important to follow those policies. For me, I was a homicide prosecutor. I was prosecuting death penalty cases and standing in courtrooms asking that somebody be executed for the heinous, atrocious crime that they committed. Sometimes I take a very hard line when we talk about chapters in the fraternity side of, violating alcohol or sexual assault rules. I mean, that to me is one of those to where I realize that I've been somewhat hardened because I've seen it at its extreme. So I think in those types of conversations, it's all about respect of the different perspective. The reason why we have representative governments, whether it's in Congress or whether it's in TKE, is because we recognize that lots of different inputs from different perspectives make better decisions. I think the other thing is trying to conduct yourself with a level of empathy towards somebody else. When somebody is passionate about a position, it's because of things that we may know and things we may not know. I think the hard thing is when you go into that type of situation, you don't know somebody's full background. You don't know everything that they've been through. Whatever the topic is, I think it's trying to get to understand what the other person's perspective is. I think another part of that is sometimes you just aren't getting it. And it's obvious sometimes where in a situation like that, you're just not understanding. It's not computing. You can't put yourself in their place. And I think that it's requires a level of recognition to sometimes say, you know what, this isn't working right now. Let's just let's just pause it. And then let's get back to it, when we've had some time for reflection, because oftentimes very few decisions really truly have to be made right there, right then, or else. Most things can breathe a little bit.
That's perfect. And again, it echoes what we've talked about in this video. And I think it really echoes everything that goes into us as teachers trying to improve the world around us, have respect for others, and develop that personal worth and character that we take so much pride in. So I appreciate the perspective. I appreciate the background look at some of your successes and failures in life, and I hope that that's helped those who are out there watching right now. Do you have any final comments for the group?
Yeah, I think it's we're doing this in this virtual environment because of necessity, but I think it's a really exciting time to be a part of this. And we're going to come through this particular episode of life with a better perspective of what it means to be connected. And for people that are just starting this journey, invest in it wholeheartedly. Try new things, do things you normally wouldn't do, attend an RLC or a conclave, meet people from across the country, use your spring break as a road trip to visit other chapters. You get this opportunity during your collegiate time to really experiment and try things. I think the other thing is as we go through this journey, what I've learned is TKE's more than just your house. TKE's more than just your campus or your chapter. I've been on the Grand Council 9 years now, and some of the best friends that I have in life are people that I met through and serve with. And there's no way I would have ever met them or talked to them or knew that they existed, but for our common connection of wanting to serve the organization. And, you're a fool not to take advantage of it. And realize that we're all here to support you. The Grand Council, the professional staff, we want you to succeed in the rules because it makes us a better organization. When I was on the TKE court, I closed my home chapter, and it was heartbreaking to have to do that. But I'd make the same decision twice because we weren't doing it the right way. It was also awesome to be on the stage at Conclave when we rechartered. So, even if there are setbacks, continue to plug forward, and we're all there to support you.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I think those are really good words to leave off with. So, Fratto Vescio, appreciate your time, appreciate the input. Always good talking to you. Hope things continue to go well down in Orlando, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, it's great. Thanks for the opportunity.
And we thank Fratto Vescio again for his time. That is it. That is all for this lesson, and that is all for at least this version of our member education. I hope that this has been beneficial to you. If you've not watched the rest of our videos, please at least go back and take a look. You don't have to sit through all of them start to finish, but hopefully there are little nuggets in there that'll help you be a better TKE, a better leader, a better man, And hopefully you can start to build some habits. That's what it's all about. It's about habits and it's about mindset. And the quicker you can get a grip on those things, whether it's in leadership, whether it's with finances, whether it's with recruitment, the more successful you're going to be. As we think about some continued education this last time, go talk to your hegemon. If you haven't talked to your hegemon since we all broke up and went home, go talk to him. If you're a new member, if you're a candidate, share with him what you've learned. Share with him what this experience has done for you. See how things are going with him, how he's holding up. Check in on the leaders of your chapter. That's a huge component of being a leader is leading from below. So check in with your hegemon, check in with the rest of your pledge class, schedule a Zoom meeting just to say hi, just to say what's up. You guys can talk about TKE if you want to. You don't have to, but that human connection, once again, continue to build that and don't lose sight of that while we are all at home waiting to see when things are going to open back up. Complete your e-compliance. If you've not done that yet, please go to edu.tka.org. There's a lot we didn't cover in these videos as it relates to risk management because it's all there with e-compliance. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please do. And that's only going to continue your education and make you even more knowledgeable about the fraternity. And then lastly, if you have not already, if you're a new member watching this, go become an initiated member. Get that initiate fee in, get your materials, get your supplies. Become an initiated member of Tau Kappa Epsilon. Even if you can't have ritual till you get back to campus, the second that you commit to that initiation fee with the offices of the Grand Chapter, you're a full member in the fraternity, and you can't let anyone tell you otherwise. I'm happy to have that conversation if someone wants to debate it. But now that you've gone through all this, hopefully you feel educated, you feel knowledgeable, and you feel ready to become an initiated member. So I thank you all very much for watching today. I thank you all for watching throughout this month if you've been with us this whole time. I'm always happy to talk, always happy to answer questions. You can reach me at any time at aswenson@tka.org. You can find it on our website. You can hit me up on social media. I'm pretty accessible. So thank you all again. Looking forward to talking again soon, and enjoy your summers.